Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
I have clients contact me in different ways every once in a while. They're concerned about anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients are components in food which can block the absorption of important nutrients such as calcium and iron and other minerals. That's what they typically block. But they have health benefits. And the truth of the matter is, when you eat a normal, healthy, balanced diet, they're not an issue. You'd have to have very exaggerated amounts of these anti-nutrients for them to be a problem. So what exactly are they? Well, I'll tell you specific anti-nutrients in a minute. But plants have to be able to protect themselves from mold and fungal infections and bacterial infections. So they've evolved to release these as kind of their own immune system. They're part of their own immune system. And like I said, if you have a balanced, healthy diet, where you're getting a cross-section of healthy foods, you're really not going to get so much of these anti-nutrients that they become a problem. They become a problem if you had super high, concentrated, exaggerated amounts of them. So what's the problem with them? They can interfere with how your body absorbs nutrients. They're anti-nutrients. They can interfere with your body absorbing nutrients. And sometimes I use that to our advantage. I'll go into that too. So you have to absorb minerals from your stomach and mostly from your small intestine. And if the anti-nutrients are in there, they attach to these minerals and you don't absorb them. So they mostly affect minerals like zinc and selenium and potassium and calcium and iron. That's what they mostly affect. But that's not a great thing if it's true. So welcome to our episode, Anti-Nutrients. They're not as scary as they sound. Hi, my name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. I'm Chief Scientific Officer over here at Invite Health. I want to thank you for tuning into today's Invite Health podcast episode. You can find all of the episodes for free wherever you listen, or just visit invitehealth.com/podcast. Please subscribe and please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. The information on this episode is linked in the episode description. So, let's get going. What's the story? So, where do you get anti-nutrients? Well, you'd get them in beans, legumes. So, legumes include lentils and beans and soy foods. You'd get them in whole grains, so you could get them in bread and pasta and cereals if they're whole grains. You get them in teas, black tea to be specific, and you get them in cruciferous vegetables, broccoli and cauliflower and kale and Brussels sprouts. I'm not big on Brussels sprouts. I love the way they taste, but don't overeat them, because they have arsenic in them, and they tend to concentrate arsenic from the soil. So you don't want to eat a lot of Brussels sprouts. You have them once a month, you're fine. But the other cruciferous vegetables, bok choy, collard greens, broccoli rabe, they're really healthy. I mean, what's better than baby bok choy? It's delicious with some garlic. So it turns out that the anti-nutrients, they're really not a concern when you have a balanced diet, unless you have super high amounts. They're actually healthy. I'll give you another for instance. Many years ago, I read about doctors telling people not to eat fiber, because they found out that fiber is bulk in the intestines. They were afraid it would block the absorption of healthy things in your food. And we know that's not true. Fiber actually improves the absorption of healthy things from your food. So now scientists know that fiber lowers the risk of colon cancer and high blood pressure and diabetes, and can help lower your cholesterol and even help with your body weight. It's kind of the same things going on with anti-nutrients. So let's look at some of the anti-nutrients. One of them is the glucosinolates in cruciferous vegetables. So that's the cruciferous vegetables are also called brassica vegetables. So that's the broccoli, the kale, the bok choy, the broccoli rabe, the broccolini. There's glucosinolates in there. Are they a problem? Well, if you don't cook these vegetables, there's something in there that slows down your thyroid. We don't know what it is, but there is something in raw. That's why I don't like raw cabbage. People like to eat raw cabbage. I don't like raw cabbage because I don't want it to slow down my thyroid. My thyroid's important for my metabolism and my energy production. But if you cook the vegetables and you only have them 4 or 5 times a week, they don't seem to affect the thyroid at all. But there's still sulforaphane in there, or glucosinolate, which is considered to be an anti-nutrient. And the truth of the matter is, it blocks the cancer process. Sulforaphane and other ingredients in the cruciferous vegetables and the cabbage-like vegetables like broccoli and kale, there's indole carbenols, there's glucuronic acid, there's sulforaphane, which is an isothiocyanate, a sulfur-containing compound. They block different aspects of cancer. Like the indole carbenols stack up into something called diindolylmethane in your intestines. Your good bacteria stack it up into like these 5 molecules of indole 3-carbinol to make DIM. And DIM lowers the risk, apparently, of prostate cancer and breast cancer and ovarian cancer and uterine cancer. I mean, there's evidence on that. They have to build more, but there's something to it. But it also blocks the effects of the virus that can lead to cervical cancer. It blocks the human papillomavirus, like the 16 and the 18 strains that are really bad for your cervical tissue that lead to a bad pap smear. And then there's the glucuronic acid, which seals toxins into your poop. That's really important if you're constipated, because otherwise bad bacteria break down the bond between the toxins and the poop, and the toxins get back into your bloodstream and they get recycled. So when you have the cabbage vegetables, they release glucuronic acid that kind of works like a Teflon coating over your poop and prevents the recycling of toxins. I would call that a good thing. But the sulforaphane is really special. There's a lot of evidence that sulforaphane blocks cancers, like prostate cancer and breast cancer. Very interesting stuff. It also inhibits a whole bunch of viruses, like the herpes viruses and the human papillomaviruses. But it gets rid of progerin, and that's really incredibly important for older people. Have you ever seen those little kids, like they send them, the Make-A-Wish Foundation sends them to Disney World, and they're like 11 or 12 years old, but they look like they're 80? That's progeria. They don't have the ability to rid the body of a bad protein called progerin, and the progerin is toxic. It ages them at an unbelievable rate. So you have these little 12-year-old kids with heart failure, and they're starting to develop dementia, and they have diabetes. They have all the diseases you'd see in people who are in their 60s and 70s who didn't take care of themselves. So that's one thing. I don't know if sulforaphane can help that, but it can help me. And this is why I'm eating my broccolini and my baby bok choy and my broccoli and my kale all the time. As you get older, that same protein that's so toxic in those little kids starts to build up in older people. It's called progerin. And progerin poisons our cells. Sulforaphane rids the body of progerin. So for an anti-nutrient, I would call that a pretty good nutrient that slows down the aging process, fights viruses, and helps lower the risk of several cancers. Now, another one, phytates. You find phytates in corn. You find phytates in rice, in barley, and wheat, whole wheat. Phytates improve the immune function. They improve your immune system function. And they help kill cancer cells. They like slow down the growth of cancer. They've also been shown to have antioxidant activities that help reduce inflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation. That's bad for the heart and bad for the kidneys and bad for the brain and bad for your circulatory system and bad for your skin. So I'm not against phytates. Just don't overdo it. What about tannins? You find tannins in black tea and coffee, but also grapeseed. But grapeseed, like, helps kill fungal infections and certain viruses that affect the intestines, the enteroviruses like norovirus. And grapeseed protects your heart and improves your circulation. I mean, it's so good. It's good for your kidneys. So I don't think grapeseed is bad at all. But what about the tannins in black tea? That could be a bit of an issue. The tannins in black tea can block the absorption of iron. Now, you need iron for a lot of things. You need iron for the brain to function well. You need iron to protect the brain. It makes neuroglobulin to protect your brain. You need iron as an antioxidant, especially in the liver, in catalase. It's the core of catalase. The immune system uses iron to kill viruses and bacteria. You need iron for energy in your muscles and for energy in general with hemoglobin in your blood and myoglobin in the muscle. So iron is really important. Some people have too much iron. So what I do, I give them black tea. And the black tea, the tannins in the black tea grab the iron and prevent its absorption. But you have to be without any vitamin C in the meal. So I'm telling them, avoid vitamin C rich foods like an orange, a lemon, a lime during that meal. Don't have anything with a lot of vitamin C. So that's the message here. Tannins can disrupt the absorption of iron, but if you have some vitamin C with it, the tannins don't block the absorption of iron anymore. So for people with too much iron, I'll tell them have black tea with each meal. A cup of strong black tea with each meal. Don't put milk in it. And don't put lemon in. But if you want to drink black tea with a meal and you're worried about your iron absorption, just make sure you have some vitamin C rich food, like some spinach or, an orange. And then the black tea won't block the absorption of iron. So tannins could be negated anyway. Now, tannins in black tea have some benefits. They're theaflavins and thearubigens. They inhibit certain viruses a little bit, but they're good for your heart, they're good for your circulation, and they're good for your cholesterol levels. So I'm not against them. Now, what about lectins? There's a doctor that's making a living knocking lectins. And lectins are in really good foods. They're ubiquitous in good foods. You're going to find them in whole grains. You're going to find them in beans. When you cook them, you get rid of most of the lectins. When you cook them, you get rid of most of the lectins. However, lectins are connected with better blood flow and a reduced risk of developing heart disease, lowering the risk of developing diabetes, helping the immune system fight cancers and lowering the risk of cancers. They're connected to helping prevent obesity. So they're needed to improve your immune system to help fight infections. So I'm not against lectins. Like there's a banana lectin. What's the name of it? I think it's called Banlec. There's a banana lectin called Banlec. They're experimenting with that. It inhibits HIV type 1, human immunodeficiency virus type 1. So there's lectins that are good. But there are lectins that's bad, but you're not eating those foods. Like the castor bean, where they make castor oil out of. Castor oil is a drastic cathartic. I mean, it's a very powerful laxative. It's just horrible. But from the castor bean, they get ricin, which is a deadly poison if you inhale it, and there's no antidote. So there are bad lectins, but we're not talking about the lectins in beans and grains, especially because you're cooking them. You don't eat raw beans. Yes, you do have raw grains, but it's not such a big deal. They're more in beans. And when you cook them, you're breaking down the lectins, but a little bit of lectin is healthy. So I wouldn't avoid those foods. And like I said, when you have a balanced diet, all of these anti-nutrients are not an issue. So, and I gave you some tricks. Like if you're going to have black tea with food and you're worried about your iron absorption, just have some vitamin C rich food or take a vitamin C pill with it, and the black tea won't block the absorption of the iron. Now, what about green tea? Will that block iron absorption? A tiny bit, not much at all. It doesn't really mean anything. So green tea is fine. It's the black tea. Because here's how they make green tea. They pick the leaf and they steam it, and it's green tea. But if they pick the leaf and they don't steam it, there's an enzyme in the leaf that naturally ferments the leaf and it becomes black tea. So in green tea, it's catechins. They're not such a problem with the absorption of iron. But in black tea, it's tannins. They block the absorption of iron. So, and like I said, a nice all-around diet is going to help prevent that from happening. So thanks for tuning into the Invite Health podcast today. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or just visit invitehealth.com/podcast. Please make sure you subscribe and please leave us a review. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. I hope to see you next time on another episode of the Invite Health podcast. And thank you so much for listening. Jerry Hickey signing off.